It's about 10:15, so I think we'll get started. I lost my screen in the sharing of everyone's. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves? Sorry.
Sure. Well, I'll get started. Thank you, Tracy, for sharing that information with us. Based on the session description, you can see we are representing the PLCO, or the Professional Learning Collaborative of Ohio, which we are one of the RemotEDx funded initiatives. And we can tell you a little bit more about that as we progress through our presentation. But first and foremost, we'll go ahead and introduce ourselves. My name is Dave Clark. I'm a couple of things. I am a curriculum and technology specialist for the Educational Service Center in Hamilton, Ohio, or Butler County, where I do a lot of different things for the agency as a full-time job, which is where my involvement with this initiative took root. And then I am also an adjunct professor at the University of Cincinnati, where I teach a course called Educational Technology to service teachers. And I'll now let Jeremy introduce himself.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Jeremy Hunter. I am the Curriculum and Technology Integration Coordinator at Lake Geauga Computer Association in Northeast Ohio. So I'm here in 2-degree temperatures right now, getting ready for winter, I guess, or we're already in winter. Dave and I and John came together from a TLO project that we'll talk about a little bit later. But what I do at LGCA is I help support all areas of tech integration throughout the Lake Geauga and Cuyahoga counties. So I'll let John go next. That's enough of me.
Good morning, everyone. My name is John Mansel-Pleydell, and I am the supervisor of the Professional Learning Group of the Northern Buckeye Education Council, which is the organization that also has the Northwest Ohio Computer Association, which is the Information Technology Center for Northwest and North Central Ohio. So we do professional development, and I have teachers who work with my people in our 40-plus school districts, excuse me. And we do a lot of educational technology, and I think that probably I'm not sure what districts are represented in this call, but if they're around the Toledo area, then that is in part of our footprint. Let's go to the next slide.
Sure.
And I think this is Jeremy.
Well, as I started to say, the three of us got together initially on collaboration for a fire hose project, which was part of TLOOhio.org, organization of tech leaders from all around Ohio. We got together right at the start of COVID, and the fire hose project was an opportunity for us to take some of the tools and resources that we knew teachers, administrators were going to need, and just kind of compile them as a large resource for them to get to and access and vet them for use. Rather than just being a complete dumping ground of resources, we went through a vetting process of them, put them up there for use. We heard from everybody in our regions as tech leaders that they were struggling to find the necessary resources to help them do the blended model, do the full virtual model, or whatever each district needed to do and implement. So we tried to provide those resources, and then regionally do some trainings around those resources for those teachers and districts that needed that stuff. So fast forward to what we are now, our PLCO. So
we've been on a we shall say an extended timeline. This grant we applied for basically almost 2 years ago. And we were awarded originally in July of last year about just under $500,000 to create 25 courses for RemotEDx and the Ohio Department of Education. We then began starting to build those courses, and then with further clarification from the program cabinet, we were approved in January of this year, very early on in the new year, up to the full amount, and it was decided that the original proposal, which we had included, and we're going to talk about our learning management system and training required to share this idea with other agencies across the state, so that not just our 3 agencies, but we will be taking on other partner agencies, and the training for that was included in the original grant. So we have been fully funded now up to $1.15 million. David, you want to bring up the Mentimeter now then?
Sure, absolutely. So we thought it would be appropriate just a couple junctures of our presentation today to get a little bit of audience feedback / interaction. So on your screen right now, hopefully at the top, you'll be able to see if whatever device it is you are currently accessing us on, or on your phone, if you wouldn't mind going to the menti.com URL. And at the top of the screen, hopefully you'll see that there is a code that begins with 3 and ends with 2. There's a space in there. You are welcome to add the space. You're welcome to leave it out. It's immaterial. But if everybody would just take a second to go to menti.com, go ahead and put in that code, and hopefully your screen on your device will look similar to mine. And while everybody's getting in, we've got first in. So when you think of online courses, what word immediately comes to mind? This is a 1-word answer. I'm going to temporarily hide responses. I have this set up so that if one word you'd like to answer a couple of times, I believe you can answer multiple times. So if there's several words that come to mind, just as a reminder, I prefer that you not test this, but if you want to, you can. I do have the profanity filter on, but if online courses cause you to think things that are less than flattering, this is important data for us as we move forward with this project. So this is, there's no information we are gathering from you, so honesty is appreciated. I'll let this go about 20 more seconds and we'll do the big reveal, and then we can kind of comment on it if we feel necessary, and then we'll transition back to the presentation. So clearly the last 2 years, online courses are not new, but the intensity, the prevalence, and the number of students using them has certainly accelerated regardless of your age level that you're working with from K-16. So this is a space where we've been, where we're going to be, and where we're going. So one of the things with the grant that we're really working on is we want what we design, build, and create to be as effective as possible. So John and Jeremy, I'll do the big reveal. Let me see here. All right. So no accountability, cheap, impersonal, convenient. All right. So we've got some interesting feedback. The 2 words that definitely are a little bit larger than the other, which meant multiple people felt similarly, hard and convenient. So the convenience factor, I'll take as a boon or a blessing or a positive, and the hard, maybe not so much. All right, so let us, based on that, John or Jeremy, I'll transition back, or do you want to say something?
I was just going to comment about actually in the chat. We've got Allison is making some. Thank you, Allison, for the comments. Dr. Godey has been a a colleague of mine for some time, and we've worked together on quite a few projects. She was, in fact, part of the fire hose project that David mentioned earlier on in the piece. So, in fact, the collaboration, so the name that we chose, the word collaboration, I think, different people means different things to different people. But in our case, it has always been that we have managed to accomplish something by taking the best that everybody has to offer. And sometimes you just have to accept that it's not going to be exactly the way that you want it, but you can see for the good of what everybody's doing that that you pick your battles, I guess. And I want to say where we have come to today is as a direct result of that collaboration, and that Jeremy and David and I meet on a regular basis via Zoom, and have done so since been doing that for probably nearly 2 years now as part of TLO and then part of other, certainly this project. We didn't actually meet in person until we went and all met up at the OESCA conference in September of last year. So we collaborated for almost a year without ever having physically ever met each other. So I can say now that we have actually met each other. But if you think about the words that came up in talking about those online courses, and really the reason probably for why we are meeting here today on a Saturday morning is because as people in the teaching profession, we find ourselves with very little time during the regular week to spare for anything extra, especially for what we have called professional development. And we're going to have a question about professional development versus professional learning and what that actually means, because we are the professional learning collaboration of Ohio, and we use that word very meaningfully. So our mission to create engaging professional learning experiences for all educational stakeholders in Ohio. And through that will be our vision, access to a range of self-paced and instructor-led courses via an easy-to-use online learning platform. Sometimes I think easy to use and online learning platform are kind of oxymoronic, because there is a steep learning curve for most people. Fortunately, everybody has been forced to use some kind of learning management system in the last 12 months. So if we think back to Hattie's comments that we had on the first slide, we don't really want to return to the way we were before COVID. So we need to be able to leverage the skills that people have actually picked up. So we mightn't like doing lots of Zoom meetings, but we're very good at it. So it will allow us then a lot more flexibility. So the platform that was really very much part of the original grant proposal. It didn't get funded in the first round, so we kind of had to work out how we were going to do it a little bit differently to that. So and then the vision then comes down to a couple of those bullet points. And these would be key components. The mentorship and the networking is really what we want to say will set us apart from the other one. So if you are just pointing and clicking through a course, you don't have any, you have much less ownership of that course and of the knowledge that you're getting from it. If you're just doing it for compliance, I need to check a box, I need to get my CEUs, then if that's your motivation, I suppose that's okay. And we will accommodate you, but that's what a lot of the current course offerings are like. But when you get into a course, that you do it because you want to do that course, because you are intrigued by the content, you find it easy to engage with the content, you meet interesting people who share interesting things with you, those are much more meaningful and I think effective ways of communicating knowledge. The motivation, the learner needs to be engaged and self-directed. So they need to be able to find different things that they want to explore in the system. So these were all in the back of our mind. The next point, facilitated professional learning networks. And by that, and I think this is really what separates us from some of the other proposals. We mentioned TLO is a professional learning network. And in my mind, a professional learning network is a group of people who regularly meet in person, online. They they exchange emails, they collaborate on projects together, they post in an online forum and answer each other's questions. And I'm involved in several of these. The Google Educators Group of Ohio is another PLN. It's got a large membership and there's a lot of people that will read the content there. And I think usually the meetings, we have monthly meetings online and Zoom, and there's about between 80 and 100 people usually in that meeting. Eric Kurtz is the Google guru, and he shares his expertise. Stephanie Howell shares her expertise as an instructional coach, and it's just a good group to be part of. So hopefully you all have found groups like that. And what we want to do then is tie that back in with the learning experience. So courses in our system will have professional learning networks associated with them. And the facilitator of the course will be the facilitator of the professional learning network. And there will be some assessment that is done as part of, and again, we're going to talk about badges in a second, but that it's definitely tied in with that. And then the last thing, we want to model remote blended and hybrid instruction in our system so that the teachers get an idea about how can they can give that same blended rich experience to their students and pass that on. So learning by doing is definitely one of our hallmarks.
And I'll just kind of pause for about 10 seconds to let everybody read and then just give a quick comment on this before we progress to the next slide. And just my quick comment as a person that's had the pleasure of being able to teach both in a K-12 setting and the higher ed, my only adjustment that I would make to this statement is that this applies not only to the higher education experience, but also to the K-12 engagement and performance. And just as to reiterate what John mentioned, we feel that it's essential with a lot of the research that we've done, that sense of belonging. Everybody loves the ability to move at their own pace and the accessibility of an online course. But one of the things that we feel is essential as well is that sense of belonging. So we'll transition over to Jeremy to kind of take us through what we feel are some essential elements to the work that we're doing.
Thank you. So I also wanted to touch on your guys' responses to the question we posed. And honestly, most of that we completely agree with you on. And that's our whole reason why you'll see what we're going to present here next. And the key items that we came out of needing to be in a platform. You talked about convenience. So you get choices to be able to do what you want to do and how you want to interact. They talked about being impersonal. Well, we want to remove that because the key component is that engagement, feel of belonging to a class, to a course. So over the last 2 years, in doing online courses, online PD, interaction, and doing the boots on the ground type of research, we have come up with some key components that we wanted to have in our courses as well as in our platform. We built this together and how we came about for our RFP. So thank you. We want to have regular and purposeful interaction between the instructor and the learner, eliminating those impersonal components and helping share information and knowledge across. Even though I'm the instructor of a course, I can learn from my students, from people participating. So key component. Next. Acknowledging achievements for skill acquisition at a granular level through the use of digital badging. We wanted to provide feedback for people as they progress through their courses and through their learning, not only to show evidence of their knowledge, but also to help support them and give incentives as they go through it. So with that research, we pulled some of Hattie's stuff together. And we really felt these are some of the key components. And we all know anything over 0.4 is statistically relevant. These are the items that we really want to focus on within our online courses to make sure that we're getting the best bang for the buck and people are getting what they need when they participate in those. Short videos, transfer strategies, class discussions, again, feeling involved and engaged with those items. So that's a key component. Thank you. The other key elements that are going to be there: shared platform, access, badging, the ability to do portfolios so you can track your growth, monitor, review, share. We'll have graduate credit options to be able to evaluate. And then the course, depending on the course, will be aligned with OTES standards so that you can use them as teacher evidence proof of growth, or ITSD standards, depending on which course is more aligned to those.
Okay, we're going to talk a little bit about the LMS and the kind of the journey that we went on. And this started out with us basically looking at every learning management system that we had the opportunity to kind of have an interaction with. I was fortunate enough to, when I was studying at Bowling Green and later on I was a teaching assistant for online courses. So I got a chance to use Canvas, and yes, it's a wonderful system, has many features that we wanted, but we looked at the criteria. So we needed to have the portfolio progress artifacts, be able to track progress. It needed to do badges. It needed to be able to be logged in via a Google School account. We didn't want it to be another account that you have to remember, because if it's an account you use every day, then it's very easy for you to bump in there, do something and get out again. You need to have the ability to do different kinds of assignments, and we wanted to have a linkage back to the tools that the teachers are already using. Google Classroom is very well penetrated and understood in K-12 now, all the way down to the elementary grades. So our system will actually is using the Google Assignments API. So you will actually be able to create an assignment from within the system. The system that we've settled on is actually based on the Moodle, which is an open source platform that has been in development for probably 30 years. It was originally developed in Australia. Many of us have had experience with it, but we are approaching it from a slightly different point of view, in that because it is modular and because there has been so much development done on it, it's basically like a Lego set, and it can do anything that we want to do. The group communication, it's going to be scalable because we're having it hosted by it's a Moodle, a national Moodle partner company that is doing the hosting. And so rather than trying to do it ourselves, we're going to have the professionals do it for us. So it will scale up to the level that we're going to need. It's going to be very sustainable for price. And it's going to have what we're looking for, the ability to have tenants. So there will be different, each agency will have their own little space inside of the system where they can track their own users and they can put on their own courses. So let's go to the next slide.
Hey, Dave.
David, would you go to the next slide? Is David frozen?
Yeah, I think he froze.
Uh-oh.
John, if you don't mind.
And we thought he had the most reliable connection.
Could I fill in the empty space for a moment?
Yeah.
Hi, good morning. It's so great to see you, gentlemen, and thank you for presenting with us this morning. Thinking in the 2-year period of time in my current role as a faculty member at PGSU and teaching the pre-service teacher in the pre-service teacher preparation program, much like David, I have undergraduate teachers who are preparing for the field. And David, I'm sure you have a cohort of students like me who were freshmen in now who are in their junior year and actually utilizing the tech integration tools that we were forced into using in the online teacher preparation when we made that transition to online. And I find it fascinating how it's possible that they are really accelerated in tech integration, and they are doing incredible things with instructional design. I had a project for these students to prepare an infographic that shared some details for me anecdotally about what they've experienced since their freshman year. And their infographics are so dynamic, and I'd love to share some time with you gentlemen. But in the grand scheme of things, in the K through 16, our teacher preparation, both at the undergraduate pre-service teacher preparation level, as well as the professional development level in the area that you're working with right now, is so important, and it has transitioned so greatly. So again, kudos to you three for this project and where we are right now. I look forward to continuing our collaboration. Even though I can't be at the table all the time, you know, it's always on my mind.
Well, thank you, Alison. We appreciate your support. We'll just get back to the presentation. This is a screenshot inside of Moodle. Badging is part of the core that is offered in Moodle. And so on the left, you see that would be a section where, and there's a couple of things that you'll see in some slides coming up. There are some do's and don'ts of badging, because so when we actually got into the idea of looking at badging, there was definitely some things that needed to be discussed there. And I think Jeremy found this article, but you can look at those 7 points there. You want to speak to them, Jeremy?
Yeah, so actually, it was ironic because we were, kind of trying to hash out how we wanted to do badging. Everybody kind of does it a little bit differently. And this article, along with a couple others, really led us to what we wanted to make sure we didn't do. We wanted to make sure that they were purposeful, they had meaning, they weren't randomly assigned, and then they had the ability to track, and they could grow from there, right? Our biggest knowledge and thought, at least for John and I especially, even Dave, is we have badging, and we've gained badging, over the years. Google Level 1, Google Level 2, badging and certificates, ITSD badges. So we really have used those resources or those experiences along with some of these definitely digital do's and don'ts about building it moving forward. We're still not set in stone. It's still not a sealed deal. So we would love your guys' input on that as well. And I think we have at least one more question about that coming up.
And if you look at these items here, and then consider that as we are talking about badging as it applies, in your case, to higher education, and in our case, as it applies to K-12, but Forbes is looking at it from the point of view actually from industry. So they're saying issuing badges that don't match to internships or jobs. And you mentioned that workforce development was one of the areas that that you were interested in. It's an area that I've become really interested in. So there is starting to be an alignment between what we all do to make it that we can then we can apply what is happening in the real world with what is happening in education. And badging is really a way to bridge that gap between that, because badging, and so let's go to the next slide. But within the context that we're going to look at, we want to divide our badges up. So when we give somebody a credential, oftentimes, and especially in higher education, but also especially in high school, it's more about what the student knows rather than what they can do. Whereas in our system, because we're going to have a mix of different courses, we're interested in what they're learning about, and that that's an active verb, learning and collaboration, and what that looks like. So 2 examples would be completion of a 12-hour course in our system is learning that will get you a badge. If you, for example, take the Certified Educator Level 1 cohort and do at least 12 hours of work, then you should be able to get 1 graduate credit hour, and you can take the Google Certified Educator exam, and if you pass, you get the badge. And so there are several kind of layers to that one, but that's we're trying to tie it into an external external credential. And then the collaboration part again, that is an active involvement in the group. So that would be your participation in PLNs. And if I can tie that back to my experience of teaching at PG, when we tried to get students to engage in the forum part, and it was give them a question or a prompt and then respond to two of your colleagues or two of your fellow students on that. It's a very kind of prescriptive way of doing it. This, if you're comfortable in this situation, then you are asking authentic questions and you're getting authentic answers. And that's, to me, is the hallmark of working within that. So you should be rewarded for it. So you will get a badge for participation in a professional learning network. Let's move on to the next slide.
Yeah, and as we transition, it never ceases to amaze me. And I say this like I'm talking about other people when I'm honestly talking about myself. But what the kind of smile or the, the leveling up, so to speak, when you get this intangible digital badge. It's, with my work, most of my teaching experience has been with middle school kids. And maybe that's the one group that kind of is too cool for stickers, if you will. But my higher ed students, my adult learners, I mean, the smile on somebody's face when they get this digital badge that they can put at the end of their signature on their email, or, one of the designations I have that, I mean, I'm a Wakelet ambassador, if you've ever used Wakelet. Well, when they sent me a t-shirt, that like made my week. I mean, it's these little things that you don't think are motivating, and they really are. So what we did and what we're trying to do is just to make sure that, like John mentioned, we should reward people for completion of their course, but there's also that whole like, great job with that conversation. There are other things that digital badges can make people have a positive and engaging learning experience outside of simply course completion. So what we'll do now is we're going to transition to, and then we'll kind of talk about some of the courses that we've developed. And this is what we hope sets us apart, because honestly, in the almost 2 years we've been together, in the year that we've been working on this, we have looked at a lot of things that don't work in our efforts to get to what does work. So like we've mentioned, this shared platform, this ability to share cost and content as we put courses and make them available to learners. This essential element, and I know John mentioned this, there is a value for courses that are, we kind of tend to gravitate to calling them click through. Like, it's got to click through them and get done. But to make that learning more meaningful, to make it deeper, and to hopefully generate a passion or a higher engagement level, we just feel we're passionate about the need for there to be an interactive component. And then just this, like, we are shining examples of what collaboration and personal learning networks are. It's what they're capable of doing to bring people together, that without this virtual space, we would have never come together. So we hope that shared platform, the ability to interact, and high levels of collaboration in both instruction and facilitation will set this apart. So John, Jeremy, whichever one of you, let's go ahead and just kind of share out what we have identified as courses.
I'll go ahead and go. So for our grant and for our proposal, we originally came up with 10 courses that were things that we have already kind of done, whether it be in person or virtual, and that we saw need for moving forward. So these are those 10 courses that we are going to initially roll out as part of our pilot for delivery. I'll pause a moment, kind of let you guys peruse through those.
And I'll just point out that number 7, e-learning toolbox, is in fact a series of probably between 15 and 20 mini courses that will either be 1 or 2 hours long on all of the different e-learning tools, and we've kind of divided them up into categories. So we have Zoom and Google Meet, and we have in one category, so there's online instruction tools, and there is online assessment tools. We're looking at things like Edulastic and as some of those other kinds of tools. So those are all, and then screen recording software, all of the different tools that you might need. And we see that those particular courses are more, if you need to onboard somebody that you didn't use this particular tool in your school, or they're talking about this tool in one of the courses that you're involved with in one of the other areas of the system, that you can then bump into there, and then you can take one of these mini courses and get a badge at the end of it, and it gives you the information that you need to get started with using that tool, what it is, why it's important, kind of kickstarting everything.
And so our next potential pathways, new pathways, one of the things that we're doing as we do presentations like this is getting feedback from our participants about courses, ideas, thoughts, trainings that they feel would be, that they'd like to see in this type of platform that builds to a PLN or just click through as a choice. And these are some of those potential courses. So we would love feedback from you guys today. If you have some ideas or thoughts or courses that you don't see on here, or even one you see on here that you feel is essential, please let us know, because these are the, I guess, up in the air courses, if you will, that we can tweak, add, change based on the need as we go through. Because we've all, part of the reason why we've left these pseudo in the air is obviously we put in for this grant, over a year ago, and the dynamic that has changed over the year we can all attest to. So the needs have adjusted, and we want to stay as current as possible. One of our big beliefs in these electronic courses have a tendency to get up and posted and sent out, and then they die. They don't have different iterations of that based on the changing of the times. And we want to make sure that our courses have that. So we love your input in that regard.
And some of the courses have already been created by other people. Universal Design for Learning, for example, there is already some considerable work that's been done. I've been working with the ESC of Lake Erie West. One thing that we haven't mentioned is that the actual learning content is being developed using some software that's called Rise 360, which is part of a suite of software that we have access to, but that gives you, and they will be shared inside of the Moodle system as a SCORM package. So the learners will go out and engage in the learning content, and it's not just video. It will be a broad range of different kinds of learning objects that they will be able to engage with. And we hope to have some examples of that to show off in the coming months.
One thing is just to add to John. So not only are we talking about the courses and stuff that we're building, but we've really found that in our research and building this, the tools that we're using are tools that can be used in other applications, whether it's in your classroom, whether it's in your district or building or whatever. These are tools, and we're going to help even as part of the classes we move forward. There'll be classes on the tools to help you use the tools to implement your stuff as well. So.
Yeah, they're the tools that we use to the best of our ability. We try to make them LMS agnostic. So the content that we create could be shared with not just whatever LMS we have settled on, but it could be used in multiple environments. So that's one of the things that that time that went into really vetting, looking at pros and cons, advantages and disadvantages of different LMSs in the end has proven to be really valuable time. So John and Jeremy, so looking at my clock, we're at 10:55. So what I'm thinking is, while we have a couple of minutes, I'll come back to the feedback form, but let's just, while we have a couple of minutes, let me just open it up just in case, if anybody would like to ask a general, a specific, a question, comment, suggestion, feedback. I'm going to stop talking now and just kind of see if anybody would like to. You can certainly, if John, if you're watching the chat, if you feel more comfortable putting something in the chat, if there's anything you would like to ask us, I want to make sure that we have a little bit of time if necessary to do that right now.
I'll open mic because that's something I like to do. I saw in your previous slide that there was an item number 15 and it was half out of the view of the slide, but I'm wondering if that was your open-ended slot, like what else might fit in that list of things that you have for your courses?
Actually, it was cybersecurity for educators
Okay.
was number 15. We kind of added it as an extra, and we actually have content that was already developed by a tech director from Northeast Ohio. And I think we're probably going to pay for that content and get it put in there. It was, again, a lot of this content was offered in Google Classroom, and we found that it just didn't scale up. So but we've also found that we have a system now for getting content out of Google Classroom and putting it into Rise and then getting it into Moodle and adding the assessment pieces and the PLN piece. And so that's what we're hoping to put all together.
Hey, Jeremy, I'm gonna read this because I don't know if you can see chat on your phone, but I'll toss this one out to you. Couple people have asked, how would one be able to take these courses? I saw several on the list I'd be interested in, but how do we get on this?
No, absolutely. So we have well, first of all, we're going to be running a pilot. So if you're interested in being part of our pilot to get the courses and the credit, just drop your name and email in the chat, and we'll invite you to participate in that. That would be great. But outside of that, there'll be 2 ways to get access to it. When we're done completing the courses, we will be turning them over to ODE, and ODE will post them either on their Brightspace account, or they'll be linking it back to our account. So there's going to be 2 ways of rolling that out. We will be working with Info Ohio and the RemotEDx cabinet as well to further push these out and get multiple entry points for people for that point.
I
guess I'm sorry, there is a certain level of yet to be determined because of you know, the speed at which this grant is kind of not moved forward and then moved forward. So we're getting some additional clarity from ODE for that location. But when it comes to the pilot program, we're running the pilot on our platform. So we'd love to have participants. So thank you for those. I see those chats coming in of interest. Appreciate that very much.
Maybe if one of the presenters can put their email in the chat as well. I see some people put their name in, but they didn't put their emails. So maybe
I think
nope, right
It's
there
on
in
the
the
last
front.
slide.
Oh, perfect. Perfect. There's
I love
about
how mine's not on there. That's perfect.
I think it's Dave at the bottom.
I need another click.
there it is.
Yeah.
And I'll put into the chat if you want to copy down the link to this presentation, it's public on the web, so you can access all of the slides and see the information, digest it a little bit more.
Were there any other questions? I didn't see any others in the chat. Anybody unmute and have questions?
I gotta fix that. Sorry. No, you should make a correction during a presentation, but it's a bad email address. It would have never gone anywhere.
Well, we
Mary
appreciate
said-
go ahead.
Mary said that she's not great with tech, but this is really important for me, and I think that's that was what we tried to what we have tried to do is we're trying to shoot for the people that are not good with tech, and so if they can click on the colorful G, which is what I told my elementary students, they can click on their name and get into the course, then they can probably do it. And so we are trying to design a system that uses the tools that you and the authentication systems that you already are familiar with, and make it as easy as possible and as fun as possible.
No, John, I'm still on the other side of this at the end. I'd like to know the impact. So if you want to talk about BTSU higher education doctoral programs, I'm still listening.
We are going to be able to collect some good data. I think Moodle has some very good reporting, and certainly about the effectiveness of the PLNs and measuring that, because really we don't have anything other than our own experiences to go on. I know it's really important to
I
get
love
the
it.
data, but I think if that helps to encourage other people, what we are proposing is it's not as easy as making a click-through course, but we think that we want to do what's right rather than what's easy.
Well, for certain
Yeah.
at the graduate level, as you work more with intern teachers, we're still preparing coaches from the program that you graduated from. And the rapid change of the tools that we use for really conducting that program and still having viable research projects on the other side, that the ground has moved underneath us so quickly. So definitely interested in further talking with you about potential segue from the badging work to the graduate work.
Sounds
Well,
good.
I just want
Yeah,
to
absolutely.
say thank you to our presenters. Thank you very much for the information that you shared today, and we're excited to see the work that you're working on, and clearly there's lots of people who are interested in participating as well. So excellent. We're going to take a quick break. We'll remind you to get your water, and you need to, unless you're staying here for the next session in breakout room 1. You'll need to leave this session and then choose and click on the other breakout session that you would like to go to, and that will start promptly at 11:15. So again, thank you very much to our presenters. The link will stay up here in the chat for a little bit to their slides. And again, we'll have these on our Project Impact webpage for you to access again. So thank you very much to our presenters and everyone for being here on a Saturday morning. It was great to see you all. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Allison.
Thank you.